Shri Guru Gaur Gandharva. Oh, mixing up prayer. Another one. Let me find Srila Sridhar Maharaj's invocation to Bhagavad Gita. I'm sorry. Vande Shri Guru Gaurango Radha Govinda Sundaro Sagunau Giyate Chata Gita Gudarta Gauravam. So we are on chapter 3. Can somebody remind me which verse we are on? Marie, can you say? Can anyone say
I
which?
didn't get it written down last time. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Let me see now. I think we're around 15. We were speaking about these cycles which are honored within the Varnashrama system. So we're around 15. Let's see. I'm going to pick up from verse 17, or I'll just start from 15. Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmachara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yagya pratishtitam evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayati haya agayorindriyaramo mogam partha sajivati yastvatma ratireva syad atma chittascha manava Atmanyeva cha santushtas tasya karyam na vidyate naiva tasya krite narto na krite neha kaschana nachasya sarva bhuteshu kaschidaya vapashraya tasmara shakta satatam karyam karma samachara asakto hyacharan karma paramapnoti purushaha karma naiva hi samsiddhim Astita janakadaya loka sangrahamevapi sampashyan kartumarhasi yadyara charati shishtas tattare vetarojana sayat pramanam gurute lokastadanuvartate. Okay. Action is prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas originate in Akshar, the imperishable. Therefore, the all-pervading, imperishable Lord is ever present within the acts of sacrifice offered to him. O Arjuna, one who does not respect this natural causal cycle leads a life of sin, enjoying the senses in vain. Yet there is no duty to fulfill for the realized person who delights within the self, being fully satisfied within. His only worldly action or karma is as required for his subsistence. So this is an interesting point, right? And is the kirtan very loud or no? Okay, so for me it's very it's hard to concentrate. It's too hot, a little too hot to go outside as well, I think. So these last few verses, this point has been discussed, right? That for one who is active in the world, okay, thanks, Marie, that's good to know. That for one who is active in the world, they are engaged in this, they are engaging in the plane of action, and they are creating some, I don't want to say disturbance, but there's a natural cycle of give and take, right? Let's say, or that's the idea that's prescribed by the Vedas, right? That if you're living in this world, you're you're enjoying the resources of this world, then it's natural that you need to give something back, right? So you're eating the food of this world, then we must honor the devas, the gods, the higher entities who are supplying that, right? We've taken birth because of our our parents, our elders, our ancestors, then we must honor them, right? So there's this recognition, appreciation. Welcome to Dana of give and take, right? That we are receiving so much, so we must give back. And there are different ways through which that is prescribed. And sacrifice is one of the things which is recommended here. But then this verse 17 is interesting. It's saying that for the self-realized person who is tasting the bliss of the soul, of the self, then they have no duty. Why? Because they're not incurring any debt. Although they may be active in the world, they are not taking that out of need. And the way that we may live in this world out of a sense of need, we eat and we do so many things, right? We collect money, we collect food, and so on. We are living in such a way that we incur debt. But if we are acting solely with a sense of duty, our ego is not getting entangled with our activity, and we are always internally situated on a higher plane, then we are not incurring any debt. Debt is only incurred when our own desire, our own selfish desire, or our own ego is involved with our activity. But if that is removed, if that is absent, then we're not incurring any debt. And so there doesn't need to be consideration of fulfilling all of these debts. One is situated on a higher platform. This is what is mentioned in this verse 17. They won't be considered in this cycle of give and take, or in the record book. Their debt, there will not be any debt recorded for such a person. They are taking the bare minimum that they need for their upkeep, the bare minimum of what they need to keep body and soul together out of pure necessity. So there is no debt for them. They are in a different category. Then verse 18, in the world, he neither gains by action nor loses by inaction. He does not depend on any other being, from Lord Brahma down to the simplest life form, for any purpose. So perform your prescribed duties without attachment. By selflessly executing one's duties, a person attains liberation. And then ultimately, true liberation is the state of pure devotion, attained in the maturity of selfless action. So this is all coming up to this point that Krishna is making here, that true liberation won't be achieved just by externally renouncing action, but perform what action is required as your duty in this world, in this spirit of attachment, and you will be purified and ultimately liberated through that. You don't need to give up your action. You don't need to give up your duty. Perform your duty. And internally, you cultivate that mood of detachment. King Janaka and other learned personalities succeeded in attaining devotion through the execution of their prescribed duties. So it is fitting that you fulfill your duty in consideration of the welfare of the people. I think we may have read this last week, and I also mentioned that analogy that is given in the scriptures of how milk taken in different forms has different effects upon the body, right? That if you drink too much milk, it can cause an upset stomach. But if you take yogurt, which is milk slightly transformed with an added agent, that same yogurt, that same milk product in the form of yogurt can soothe your stomach. So in the same way, action, which normally binds us in this world, if it is carried out, if it is performed in a spirit of duty, it can actually be a cause for liberation. So this is the same point that is being mentioned here. And Krishna is giving this example of King Janaka, who is a famous righteous king of ancient India. So there are these persons who've shown this example, being a king who is more involved in the material world than someone like a king, who has all wealth, all fame, all enjoyment at their disposal, right? And all those things, normally they will drag us down. But if they are used carefully and appropriately, they can actually take us up. It is all about how we are using it and with what mindset, with what consciousness. It's a fascinating thing, isn't it? It's a wonderful thing that actually everything, if we all just take a moment to pause and reflect on what's on our plate now, what's before us here and now, we can meditate on how we can change our circumstances, not by getting something else, but by using what we have here and now to transform ourselves and our environment. If we just change our approach, we can take any situation in our lives, which perhaps we may see as challenging. We just change our approach, nothing else. We don't need another person at our back. We don't need like some muscle at our back. We don't need a big bank balance or whatever. Like, just change our approach. That same situation, which was troubling us, which was a headache to us, it can become the means of our upliftment. We will see it as an opportunity. So everything is on the plate, everything is before us. It's just how we are using it. How are we taking it? What type of spirit are we doing so? It's just a fascinating point to think about. It's something, let's make it our homework, that we can think of one situation that we're dealing with and that may be troubling us, and just change our approach and see over the following days, how that changes us and changes the situation. Just because we made some tweaks in how we are approaching it, how we are going about it, everything can change. So verse 21, the masses follow the ways of great men, following the standards they set. So then Krishna is coming to another interesting point, that even if you're if you are situated in such a plane of consciousness that you are free, right? That you don't need to, you're already purified, you're already at a point of liberation or approaching liberation. Even such a person, they should still perform their duty in this world. And why? Because they must set the example for others. This is this next point that Krishna is coming to. Even if you don't think that you need to, follow the recommended path or follow the rules, you think you're above the rules, still you should follow them for the sake of others. This is also an interesting point. And this verse 21, which we just chanted, the masses follow the ways of great men. No, actually, this verse was chanted by one of our gurus, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who's the great revolutionary who established Krishna consciousness in the modern age. When my guru's guru, my grandfather, Param Guru, we say, Sridhar Maharaj, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar, because our Sridhar Maharaj, he joined this mission, and he came, the mission of his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he actually came. Chaitanya Jaya, thanks for joining us even for a few moments. She's had to go. But Sridhar Maharaj, she actually came from a very highly situated Brahmin family. There are different classes of Brahmins. The Brahmins, they are the spiritual scholars of India, the head of this religious social system of India. And there are different classes of Brahmins. It doesn't just end at Brahmins. And Sridhar Maharaj came from a very high type of Brahmin, high level Brahmin. And who are, they are the Brahmins generally are the most highly regarded in society. And he came from a particularly distinguished family. In fact, they were known throughout India for their scholarship. They spoke Sanskrit like in a casual way in his home. Like that's what level of scholarship they had. So they were very highly respected, distinguished, known for their learning. And so when Sridhar Maharaj joined his guru's mission, his guru, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, was especially pleased. And he actually chanted this verse 21, considering that if someone of this stature joins our mission, then everyone will pay attention. So this also, obviously, we are not on such a stature, but it gives us, this point here, it is something to reflect on, in the sense that, we all have some position of responsibility in that there are those who look up to us. Maybe it's our children, maybe it's our co-workers, maybe it's employees, right? But everybody has someone who's looking to them for an example, right? And so sometimes we may do things which we think we don't need to do, actually, but there are people looking at us as someone to follow, or as a reference point, at least. So then we have some duty to act for their sake. This is the point that Krishna is making here, and it's something to think about. That we have some responsibility to our environment. We have some responsibility to those who have some respect for us, who look to us for some level of an example. So then we may not always do things for ourselves. We may not always do things because we think we need to do them for ourselves. We may not need to do them, but we will do them for somebody else. We'll do them for another person. So it is something to think about. We don't live on an island. There's that expression, every man is an island to himself. But that is not the case, actually. In one sense, perhaps, but in terms of our outward behavior and how we are engaging with the environment, we have to consider that point. We may not be public television personalities, may not be at that level, but on some level, there are people who are looking to us for an example. So we have responsibility to them. And it is something to consider. So does anyone want to add any thoughts at this point, or shall we continue with our reading of Srimad Bhagavad Gita? And we have a newcomer, Shravan. I think maybe it's their first time. Welcome, Shravan. Okay, I'm going to continue with our reading. So picking up from verse 22. Name partasti kartavyam shishulokeshu kinchana nanavaktam avaktavyam varte vacha karmani yadihyaham navarteyam jatu karmanya excuse me yadihyaham navarteyam jatu karmanya tandrita mama vartmanu vartante manusha partha sarvashaha Utsideyor me loka nakoyam karma chedaham sankarasya chakartasyam upahanyam ima prajaha sakta karmanya vidvamso yata korvanti bharata koryad vidvams tata shaktash chikishir loka sangraham na buddhi bhedam janayed agyanam karma sanginam Yojayet sarva karmani vidvan yukta samachanam prakrite kriyamanani gunai sakarmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudatma kartamiti manyate. Okay. O Arjuna, I have no duty in the three worlds. I lack nothing, and there is nothing to be attained by me. And yet I myself am active. So Krishna is saying, even I carry out my, I do my job. I go to work every day. I don't need to work. I don't need to do any duty, any job. But for the sake of others who are looking to me for an example, I am doing that. Of course, this is not Krishna Vrindavan. Krishna Vrindavan, he only plays. This is Krishna in his role in Dwarka, when Krishna, in Vrindavan, Krishna reaches teenagehood, and it kind of stops there. There's this eternal cycle that goes on. But he has another persona, in his other persona, he leaves Vrindavan ostensibly, and he lives the life of a royal prince. Marie says play is also very serious. Good point. One of the things that really charms me is when I see children who just get totally exhausted, right, from playing, and then they need some care, right? They need rest and food and water because they've been playing. They're very tired. It's serious business. But in his persona as this royal prince in the city of Dwarka, then Krishna has many duties, royal duties, social duties, religious duties, so many duties that he has to carry out. So he's making this point here. O Arjuna, if ever I do not engage attentively in duties, then all men following my example will give up their duties. If I do not engage in duty, the people of these worlds will renounce their duties and fall to ruination. Thus I will be responsible for their downfall, caused by adulterated progeny. O Arjuna, as ignorant persons work with attachment, the wise too must work, but without attachment, in order to guide the general people who exist in the plane of worldly action. They differ not in their work, but in their attitudes of attachment and detachment. The scripturally learned teacher should not create confusion in the minds of ignorant, attached men by apparently advocating the neglect of duty for the cultivation of knowledge. Rather, he should set the example of selflessness in fulfilling duties, thus encouraging the ignorant in the performance of their prescribed duties. All actions in the world are in every respect affected by the modes of material nature, which impel the senses. But a man deluded by bodily identification thinks, I alone am accomplishing this work. So this verse 27, quite an important verse in Bhagavad Gita, and a fairly well-known verse. And so this, this expression that we hear, that we are not the doer, right? It's something that our community will often say, that is what is being expressed in this verse here. So what is being pointed out is that the jiva, the soul, the atma, only has three faculties: that of willing, that of thinking, and that of feeling. Willing, thinking, and feeling. We can will, we can desire, we can will, we can think, and we can feel. But doing is not included there. Doing is something that is only possible when the environment is in cooperation with our will. So, I desire to pick up these cough drops. The environment is cooperating. But if, let's say, my hand is broken, or let's say the law of gravity is not working properly, or let's say I'm developing dementia, there are so many factors which could interrupt, which could intervene. And haven't we all been there? Haven't we all been there with a broken hand, or you're just so sick, it's hard to lift. Look, Marie's showing her finger, her injured finger. Gosh, it's been a while. It's still healing. It's been a long time. So these little dated, actually, this is one of the things I appreciate about, illness and all the being bedridden. When these things come, you appreciate the tiniest thing suddenly appears like a mountain, and you realize how much effort it takes to lift a glass of water, right? Or how much effort and how much cooperation is required by our body and the environment just to be able to get up and go to the bathroom. I see. Gosh, little finger takes so long to heal. So all of these things, when we have these experiences, it's very helpful, and it helps us to realize in a tangible way that we are not the doer. Actually, we can only will. And if the environment, which ultimately is under the Lord's control, if the environment cooperates with us, then we can do it. We may have the desire to make lots of money, start a business. We may have a desire to become, famous. We may have a desire to become a Hollywood actor, actress, or whatever it may be. We may have a desire to travel the world. We may have all these desires, and we may work hard to achieve them. This is where the ego kicks in, right? I slaved away year after year. I made all that money. I did all that work. This is mine. I did it. I worked for it, right? The ego kicks in there. We were allowed, that's the fact. Actually, we were allowed to do what we did and to make what we made, to collect what we collected, to have what we have. It's all, we're being allowed to have it. So this is what is being pointed out here. Everything in this world takes place through the forces of material nature. But it is this ahankara, this ego, which causes us to think that I am the doer. And interestingly, the Sanskrit word for the false ego, ahankara, the meaning of the literal breakdown of it is aham kodo. Aham, I, kodo, I do. I do. This word ahankara, which is used widely to denote the false ego. The literal meaning of it is I do. The conception that I am the doer. I am an independent entity in this world. I do what I want, and whatever comes as a result of what I'm doing is mine. Yes, Lynn is saying man proposes, God disposes. This is the proper vision, exactly. That we may will something, and then according to the Lord's will, it may or may not take place, or his sanction. So then this possessiveness comes in, right? That I worked hard to make money to buy this house, and this house is mine because I worked for it. Marie has a comment: work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, for it is he that works in you. So it's all, it's all the Lord's energy which is allowing these things to take place. And so this is why the saintly persons, they're always humble, because they're living in this awareness. Actually, humility comes from just being a sensitive person, from just being an aware person. Because when we're insensitive, we just see ourselves, right? We're seeing what we did, what we're doing, and who we are. And there's this lack of awareness of the contribution that others are making, what others have done. Gangalila, you want to say something?
No, I had something else. Like before I came on this call, I was talking to a friend, and her friend's father passed with 64, and that wasn't right because he was about to be retired next year, and that sat there, and that sat there as a, like, how dare we think it's like a wrong time, even though that is the exact time when he went, like he left his body. And then people staying behind having an objection, and I think it's funny because you can't even begin to grieve or just let go because it's not fair. There's something wrong with that decision that that person left that body, because they're just they are having all these plans. And
Wait,
listening
sorry, I missed I missed that. Or maybe the first part I missed.
like I talked to a friend, and her father passed
Mm.
with 64 years of age suddenly, heart attack, boom, like very
Oh,
surprising. So the whole the whole family's very surprised. But what they are doing is they're going into the part where, oh, but he was retiring next year, so that's not right. So they made that wrong, his passing, and I felt like there was
oh,
I wanted to give a spark of like a spiritual understanding of how we have no right to even be so judgmental that we even think that there's something wrong with the time of death.
mm.
I don't know how to. I'm not finding the right words. I'm just like I was moved to share it because I felt like the surge of like, yeah, how dare we easily think in those terms of it's like my life or his life, and because he in the material world set up such and such things like the retirement, like I'm not going to work anymore and I'm going to enjoy my material goods, and then death comes and takes the body, and we make it wrong, and it's not for us to do so. I was putting that together somewhat with what's been shared here.
Oh, so you're saying that your friend's father, he'd like worked his whole life and then he passed away just before the retirement age. So like his family were thinking like he couldn't enjoy all of his hard work.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not fair. Like that. It's like it's not right, and there's something wrong with how that went.
Mhm.
And Jayadeva is saying like, yeah, bargaining.
Mm.
Yeah, I felt like I would like to have had a discussion about that, but they're like trapped in the anger of like it's our right to enjoy the material goods. So therefore, I can't be called off like leaving my body, for example.
Right. Well, I
I
think
don't, is that weaving into this somewhat? Because that's what I've been moved to share, like to
yes,
support
that's definitely related. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, on the whole, though, I just think it's sad because what's the root of such thinking that too much importance is being placed on this short life in this world, right? We want to live in the awareness that we could all die tomorrow, right? And we want to
Yeah, I
try to,
was shocked about the like it's not fair, and he's retired in that anger. Still on that side, they haven't even gone over there to kind of accompanying the spirit of the passing father of like moving into that kind of let's
right.
be loving, let's provide a complete different environment instead of like, oh yeah, that's really not cool. And
Yeah. I mean,
so
to me,
I felt there was a huge gap of realizing like what an opportunity to move away from our like that's how things work.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, that really exposes Marie's saying there was a similar situation with her mother. Yeah, to me, it kind of just exposes the weakness and the limitation of this kind of standard model of what the Western life, that you work hard your whole life so you can have a few years of retirement. But actually, we were discussing this morning how around the world countries keep raising the retirement age, and it's 67 in England now. And apparently in America, they're talking about changing it to 70. So it's but yeah, I mean, many people live with that and work and that mentality, right? They work so that hard, thinking, oh, I'll have some years of enjoyment in my retirement. It's a very sad way to live, but for many different reasons. Rather let us try to adjust our lives. Like David Shishbu, he's retired early, and he doesn't have, he has a smaller pension, but he has time, and he was saying, I've experienced having money and no time, and now I'm experiencing having time and no money. And I definitely prefer the latter, So if we can, obviously, not everyone has that privilege, of course, but if we have a choice, if we can live in such a way that we can make our priorities our spiritual culture, and just work as much as we need to keep ourselves together and have what we need, that is ideal. We cannot wait until we are 70 to make life meaningful, but how can we do that here and now? And ultimately, this life, it is like the blink of an eye. This is just one short stop on this train that we're on. So the question is, how can we maximize our time in this stop for our eternal benefit? That is the question. What we experience with our senses, it is very unimportant, actually. It is very, very negligible. There was this one, what we will do to enjoy in this world, it's all very superficial. We're exercising our senses on this superficial plane. It does not mean anything. It is not touching on the soul, on the person within. There was this one occasion, one of our friends in Malaysia passed away, and it was a little sad the way it happened, because I think it was over a Christmas period, and he lived alone, and somehow he passed away, and his body wasn't found till 3 days later. And he was a very nice, spiritually minded member of the community. And they felt very sad, like, oh, he was neglected and forgotten for 3 days. His body was there. And they brought this question to our guru, Srila Govinda Maharaj, how is it that, he was such a nice devotee, such a nice, member of our community. How is it that he was left like that? Like Krishna didn't take care of him. And our guru answered, he said, why are you so concerned about what happened with his body? His soul was uplifted. His soul went to a higher place. Why are you worrying about what happened to his body? So what I'm saying is, in those years of retirement, what would be done, that enjoyment doesn't mean anything ultimately. What enjoyment we have in this world, it's utterly meaningless. And in the next life, it will be forgotten anyway. So we want to try to use our time for a higher benefit, for a higher purpose. This is real talk. We may offend many people with this conversation, but this is real talk. This is for the diehards. Obviously, we cannot immediately end our enjoyment in this world. It is a habit. I have one very good friend in Dublin, one of the most beautiful people I know, but he made the mistake of getting addicted to heroin at a young age. And heroin it's the most dangerous drug, and he started at a time when there was a real lack of education. Because nowadays, they'll warn you, you can try the other drugs, but don't do heroin. You'll just ruin your life, because you can't stop it. You can die. It changes the way the chemical running of your body. And so he literally lives on this synthetic heroin that the government provides him. That's how many people live. But he's such one of the most beautiful people I know. Beautiful person, but his life was Materially speaking, his life has been ruined by this drug. But what I'm saying is, yeah, so if you stop heroin, you can die, right? Because your body is addicted to it. So in the same way, we're addicted to material enjoyment. We can't give it up immediately. There could be some bad after effects if we try to cut it out completely from our lives. But we are trying to minimize it, or we're trying to keep our priorities, right? We're trying to keep our priorities. And we're trying to follow Krishna's plan. And when we are sincere, then actually Krishna, he will interrupt our plans. We may have some very nice plans for very nice enjoyment. But Krishna he's a troublemaker. He'll stir things up. He'll interrupt. He'll intervene. So there's one very nice verse, and I believe it's in the Ishopanishad, one of the scriptures, saying that one who is not too attached or too detached, they are a suitable candidate for spiritual advancement. Being too detached can also be a problem, because we're not interested in detachment ultimately. We're interested in devotion. Krishna's interested in love. He's not interested in what we're not doing. This person is vegan, alcohol free for 50 years or whatever. Krishna doesn't care. He's interested in love. So just being this kind of innocent person, open to what Krishna wants, it's normal to have material desires. So it is okay. We can make our plans. And Krishna, he can break them. We just have to let him break them when he does. That's all. Don't put up a resistance movement. Just let him. We can make our plans, no problem. And Krishna can break them, also no problem. We don't want to be too fixed on anything. This is the point. We are trying to make our way in this world, and we've made some contact with the plane of devotion, the plane of bhakti, and that higher wave will come and take things over eventually. So we just kind of have to let that do its work, in a kind of innocent way, free way. We want to be free. So not resisting Krishna's plans. That's actually what it's about. We don't want to resist Krishna's plans. We don't have to make big plans to save the world or even to save ourselves. Just be open to Krishna's plan. That's all we have to do. Be open to Krishna's plan. So, and we can carry on with all of our silliness, whatever it may be. It's okay. Nothing wrong with that. And I'm saying this, how can I say such a thing? Because I saw our Guru, Srila Govinda Maharaj, and how he would respond to different situations. And he wasn't fazed, I'll tell you one thing, one of our Guru's personal secretaries had an affair one time. They're literally doing it in the room above our Guru's room. He didn't care. He didn't like anyone else would have, there were others in the temple who wanted to kick them out, obviously. Very understandable. Very understandable. They're literally having their affair in the floor above our Guru's quarters, this is the level of stuff he had to deal with, But our Guru, he didn't blink, he didn't blink. Obviously, he told them to end it. It's not you can do it outside, but not in the temple. And then that's not what he said. I'm saying, one of these persons was his personal servants. We expected them to live up to a particular standard. But he didn't, do a big punishment correction program or shout at them or kick them out. You know, it's just you carry on with your service, carry on with your practice, just go on. No, that's all. He wasn't phased. There were so many things. That's just one example. There were worse things actually, which I don't even want to say in public. That's already borderline, you know. But I saw he didn't care. All the messed up stuff that people did and were going through, and you know, he didn't blink. No, just keep chanting, continue. You know, that purification, it will take place naturally. That was his program. That was his approach. So we're waiting for that. We are helpless sometimes, right? We are helpless, and we're waiting for Krishna's intervention, waiting for Guru's intervention. We are helpless on our own. Gosh, I don't know how we went off on all of that somehow. Let's see. Where are we? I'll read a couple more. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's a good place to stop with our reading. Anyone else want to share any, or we still have 10 minutes left. Anyone else want to share any thoughts on this subject matter or anything else raised in our reading of Bhagavad Gita? I see Chintamani has a big smile.
Just grateful to be here and hear your reflections, Didi, and excited to hear the next verse.
Okay, we'll read a little bit more then. Let's see, we ended on 27. Oh, maybe just to pick up the thread, I'm going, oh, and welcome to Nahush, who's just joined us a few minutes ago. I'm just picking up the thread because we did we went on not a total tangent, but I did want to continue that particular point. And Jayadev shared, oh, I love this quote of this line of comment of Marie. I'll read this. A lot of people kept saying that it was a shame my mother died just a few months before she was going to retire. And I was like, you thought she was going to retire? She was just going to stop getting paid for her work. She was one of those people for whom every act is service, jai, and every breath is worship. The idea that she would ever really retire was kind of unimaginable for me. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Marie. Yes, this is real life. Like living your life here and now in this moment and making every action an act of dedication. It's beautiful, an act of love. Not that, you know, working hard, you know, begrudgingly giving your energy to others so that you can earn your, you know, your few years of freedom, you know, but making every moment meaningful, you know, making work, you know, doing your work in such a way so that it's not work, you know, if it's possible, unless it's something really, really bad. So that's beautiful. Thank you, Marie. And I also wanted to go back to that comment of Jayadev. I really like that. If you're not humble, you're not paying attention. Is that that you put that in quotes? Is that from somebody, Jayadev?
It's actually from me.
I love it.
I don't know, it came to me a while ago. You know how everyone says if you're not angry, you're not paying attention.
Oh, okay.
Right, or if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. It came to me, if you're not humble, you're not paying attention.
I see.
But I was attributing it to someone else. Why not?
Brilliant. I love that. It's so true. It is so true. It's just a lack of awareness. You know, we're not seeing the input of so many other factors in the environment, so many other entities in the environment, the value of so many others, you know. So it is due to a lack of awareness. Beautiful. There's one line of Srila Sridhar Maharaj in the text, Prapana Jivanamrita, Udbuddha Sarupe Swabhava Karpanyam, saying that the nature of the soul is to be humble. It is the characteristic of the soul. So the more awakened we are, the more humble we are. The more awakened we are, the more conscious we are, the more aware we are. Naturally, we are humble. We have more of an awareness of our own position within the context of the whole, not our own small little, egocentric world, but in the context of the whole. What is our position? And what is the contribution of so many others? So many other beautiful entities are acting within the environment. What is their contribution? What is their value? What is their endeavor? All of these things we will be more aware of, and naturally we will feel ourselves to be humble as a result. So, yes, so true, so true. I'll read one more verse, verse 28, as it is related. Tattavitu mahabaho gunakarma vibhagayo gunaguneshu vartanta iti matva nasajate. However, O mighty armed Arjuna, one who is in knowledge of the division of the modes of material nature and action knows that the modes are engaging within the modes and he is detached from them. One who knows that the three modes activated by the demigods impel the engagement of the senses with their objects knows himself to be independent of these elements, therefore he does not consider himself a doer. Okay, I'm going to stop there for this week. So we're ending on verse 29 of chapter 3. All right. Well, does anyone want to add any final thoughts before we close for this week? Or shall we end there? It's been really always very nice, illuminating discussion with our group here. Well, should
Thank
we
you,
add?
Mataji. This is
Oh,
Shravan.
Thanks for joining. Where are you joining us from, Shravan? What time zone are you on?
Sacramento.
You're in Sacramento. Okay, awesome. Is this your first time with this group?
Yeah.
Okay, welcome. Are you a friend of, did you connect through Chintamani, David?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome to have you with us, Shravan. Wonderful.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Well, shall we request Gangalila to pray us out for this week? Are you there, Gangalila?
Oh yes, absolutely. I'm just sometimes like, how did I get to earn this honor? I don't know. So yeah, so may we be continuing with the detachment of our work and make it into a duty and not take ourselves too serious while we're doing that. And maybe we can all just chant the Maha Mantra together, if we can unmute. And thank you so much, Vishaka Didi. Coming on. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Hare.
Haribo.
Thank you, Gangalila. Chintamani, any final words for our group?